Would you like to learn how to make toad in the hole, that classic English dish made with Yorkshire pudding and sausages? Stay tuned to the next episode of Hilltop Stovetop. There we go. Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we're teaching you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. Today we're going to be making that English classic dish, toad in a hole. Now there's a couple of different definitions of toad in the hole. The American version is where you take a piece of bread, cut a hole in the middle and put an egg in it and cook it up that way. And that's what they refer to as toad in the hole. But in England, toad in the hole is, that's telling me my oven's ready. Toad in the hole is sausages with a Yorkshire pudding around them. And has nothing to do with frogs. It just has to do with the fact that it looks like this little thing peeking out from the Yorkshire pudding. So in addition to learning how to make this all-in-one dish, we're going to be making something that will teach you how to make Yorkshire pudding. So if you're making roast beef, this is the same type of batter that you would use for that. So we're going to start off by making the batter because with Yorkshire pudding it's important to mix up the batter, but then let it rest for about half an hour before you actually cook it. Meanwhile, we've got our oven heating up to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the other thing about Yorkshire pudding is the heat is critical. If you don't have it hot enough, it's not going to rise up on you. And so you'll see as we go along, this is a little bit different batter than what we would normally have. So we're starting off with a cup and a half of regular flour, just all-purpose flour, not self-rising, believe it or not. And we're going to put in about half a teaspoon of salt and a pinch of pepper. And we're just going to mix that up. And then we have here, I've got 4 eggs, and I'm just going to whip those up. Now this is actually something that you can't, I'm mixing it in a bowl just because that's easier for the filming process, but it actually works quite well to do this in a blender. So we just got those mixed together, and then we're going to come over here and we've got a cup and a half of milk, a couple of tablespoons of melted butter, mix that all up, add in the eggs. And it's actually the eggs that cause this to rise up. You'll notice that there's no baking powder, no baking soda. It's just strictly the eggs. So we're just going to let that sit off to the side for about 20 minutes or so. And while we're waiting for that, we're going to get started on our sausages. So just move. All right, so now we have a heat-proof dish. And I've chosen to use the Pampered Chef Rock Crock because these are actually good up to, I think they say 700 degrees Fahrenheit. We only want it to be 425 degrees, but it's really important that you have a dish, either something like this or a metal dish that can withstand the really high temperatures. Because as I said, this is something that you don't want to be mucking around and having it half-heartedly just won't work with a lower heat. I'm also going to be using avocado oil because this is, again, the heat issue. If I used olive oil, it would be way too smoky. But we're going to put a good bit of olive oil in there, and I'm going to make sure that I am coating the edge of the pot as well. Now, if you were cooking a roast of beef, of course, you would have the fat off of the beef, but chances are you're going to be wanting to add a little bit of extra oil to that as well. Now we've got our sausages here. The ones that I have are actually, they're listed as being English bangers. So that you can tell that they're a good, nice fat sausage. And we're going to slice those. This is one thing I read about where people will take this and they'll cut it in half. And then when you put it in the bowl or in your pot, they stand them up on end. And what that does is once you get the batter in there, then it looks like something kind of poking its head up out of the batter. So we'll get all of those into the pot. It'll look like a little forest of sausages here. Now, if they do tip over, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so there we go. So we've got our little forest of sausages. I'm going to put these in the oven for about 15 minutes. Make sure that that oil is really nice and hot. And then we will be ready to add in the batter. So we'll see you in a few minutes here. So our sausages have been in the oven at 425 degrees for about 15 minutes now. I opened the door just a little bit. I can hear them sizzling. I know that things are good and hot in there. And in just a moment, we're going to flip over to the overhead shot. You'll notice I moved the camera over there so you can see when I open up the oven. The big thing is that I have my batter here, which has been resting for that time frame that everything else was getting ready. And it's still cool, which is good. I could have even put it into the refrigerator if I'd wanted to, but we're going to open up the oven really quickly, pour this over the sausages, close that oven door so we're not losing any heat. And once it goes into the oven, it's going to be about 25 or 30 minutes, but the big thing is no peeking. We're not going to open it up. We're going to keep that temperature really good and hot for the entire cooking time. So, and let's get my oven mitts ready, because that's going to be critical, because that's going to be really hot. And ready, set, here we go. You can see the fat that's in there. You can see that the fat is actually sizzling up around it there. So we're going to pop that back in, close the door, put our timer on, and that will be ready in about 25-30 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to get busy over here and make some gravy to go with this. All right, so while that is in the oven, we're going to get ready to do a little bit of gravy. Because I didn't actually have a roasted beef to make this gravy with, and even if I had, I would have been using up a fair bit of the juices from that meat to do the Yorkshire pudding. We're going to kind of fake it a little bit. So I've got some butter in my pan here, and I've got a whole bunch of finely minced onion. So we're going to start off. I'm going to fry this up until it's caramelized. So that's going to help with the nice brownness of the gravy. Then I've got some mushrooms to add to it. I've got beef broth and a little red wine. And this will make just a lovely, lovely gravy to go with that. So we'll take a little pause, fast forward through this onion caramelization part, and we'll be right back. Okay, so our onions are starting to brown up now, and we're going to add in the mushrooms. And then I've got a little bit of beef broth. I've just put in a little bit to deglaze the pan, and then I'll put in the rest. I'm going to add a little bit of red wine to this. And then we'll bring this back up to a boil and just check it for salt and pepper, see what it's going to need. And then we'll be able to thicken it up a bit. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit of pepper to it. The salt part is okay because the beef broth that I added to it was well salted. So a little bit of pepper. Now I've got in this container here a little bit of flour and water mixture, which is my preferred way of thickening gravy. Always make sure that your liquid is boiling before you put in the flour and water, because otherwise it doesn't brown nicely. And I think we're about ready here. So there, we've got our gravy done. Now we're just waiting for another 15 minutes for our toad in the hole to be done. And we will see you when that's ready to come out of the oven. Okay, so we're at about 35 minutes now. At the 25-minute and at the 30-minute mark, I did turn the light on in the oven and just have a little peek. Wasn't quite done to my satisfaction. If your Yorkshire pudding is underdone or you don't have your temperature right, that's when it's inclined to fall. At which case, instead of this being toad in the hole, you would call it toad in the bog. And you'd still be able to eat it, but it wouldn't be quite as spectacular. So we're going to now open up the oven and see what we've got here. And there we have it, folks. Toad in the hole. There we go. At the same time. So you can see how the oil in there is still sizzling around it. And then what we're going to do is, this is enough, it's 4 to 6 servings. So all you have to do is cut it into pieces. Now the tricky part is going to be around the edge here. Remember I said it was important to grease the edge as well. And then we'll take some of this beautiful gravy, which is delicious, let me tell you. And then over here, I have some corn or peas or whatever kind of veggie you want to have. And there we have it, toad in the hole. Wonderful dinner, mostly in one pot. And you can heat it up the next day. And it's beautiful, inexpensive kind of meal. And I hope that you enjoyed today's episode of Hilltop Stovetop, that you'll remember to like and to subscribe. And we will see you in our next episode. Bye-bye for now.